What's going on, everyone? It's Phil from Earth Nails and Tails, and today I'm going to show you how to plant and grow one of my favorite edible perennials that can last upwards of 15 to 30 years when planted correctly, and this is asparagus. I've got some of our asparagus here, and you can see the spears already coming up out of the ground, and some of the other ones have already ferned out. And having a setup like this is really imperative to grow your asparagus correctly. You want to make sure they have enough room to grow and establish themselves. It takes about 3 years for you to be able to actually get a harvest from your asparagus, because as you will see when we go to plant them, the crowns that we're going to plant are extremely large roots. In order for them to come back year after year after year, they have to absorb a lot of that energy from the sun and really commit that into growing those roots and developing those roots and establishing the plant in the environment that you're growing them in. That is what allows these spears to come back every single year. So when we're planting our asparagus, the very first thing, the most important thing that we need to figure out is, one, where are we going to plant them in order to get adequate sunlight? And two, where are we going to plant them to leave them for 15 to 30 years? So I've already got a site planned out right here, and I've already pre-dug these trenches just to make things a little bit more straightforward. But the area that I'm looking for, I want to get at least 12 hours of sunlight every single day. If you're getting closer to 8 or 10, it'll probably be okay, but you're not going to get as many asparagus spears, and it's going to take more years for them to actually establish and give you good spears that you'll be able to harvest. Typically, when you plant your asparagus, they want to be just like every other vegetable in a nice loamy soil. And that's probably going to be one of the hardest things for us to be able to find, depending on where you live. For most people, they don't naturally have a light, sandy, loamy soil. So what we're going to have to do is deeply amend our area, which is why I've dug these trenches. So both my trenches here are about 6 to 8 inches deep, and I've got my Hori knife that I'm going to take out, has my 6-inch mark. It's actually, yeah, it's probably closer to 8 inches deep here, 6 to 8 inches, and this is really how deep we want to dig a trench for our asparagus under normal conditions. If you have extremely sandy soil or extreme clay soil, you're going to want to dig even deeper, probably closer to a foot, maybe even a little bit more, and take that soil out, that native soil out, and mix it in with a high quality compost, which is what I have right here. So out of my trenches, I've got my native soil, which has been amending for years because I've got literally almost 4 inches of mulch here on top of this soil, and you can see how it's been changing. You can see the difference between, here's my clay, this thicker clay soil, and then look at this stuff right above it that's been breaking down from the wood chips. Just shows you how important mulch is in the garden. But what I'm going to do is mix this native soil right here with my compost 50-50, and then we're going to use that to line the bottom of our trench. Whenever I'm mixing my material, or my material is required to be mixed, I prefer to mix it actually in a container. So I've got about all my topsoil in here, so what I'm going to do is just take my compost and I'm just going to add it to here and get everything incorporated really well before I even start to use it. If you have clay soil like I do, this compost is really going to help break down that clay and form it into good soil, almost like this native soil here is pretty good. This is really a mixture of my native soil and my topsoil, but this really is the definition of loamy soil. You could see the different colors and structures and textures. You can see a little bit of sand in there. This stuff is going to be really, really good for our asparagus. And hopefully the compost, as it helps break down that clay in there and starts to form it like this, and then our asparagus are going to absolutely thrive. So I'm just going to get a few more shovels full, and then we're going to get it mixed up. All right, so now that we've got our soil nice and incorporated, see how much darker it is now? Really good consistency there. We're going to take this initial batch and we're going to line the bottom of our trench all the way down. So I'm just going to take my shovel, and I want about 2 inches. So a good way to do this, take my Hori, bloop, and now I'm going to fill it up to about the 2-inch mark. pretty much just a shovelful every point. All right, so our last shovelful. There, right now we've got both of our trenches have about 2 inches of soil. It doesn't have to be exact, but let's break out our asparagus crowns, which we have right here. We got 2 different varieties. Honestly, I don't remember what is what, but we're gonna find out together because I ordered these way in advance to make sure that we were gonna get them around the time that I wanted to plant them. And they're already starting to grow. That's great, that's a good sign. Hopefully we get these in the ground, they're really gonna establish. So this variety right here, and I'm probably gonna take a stick, Mary Washington asparagus. And then this variety is Purple Passion. So purple asparagus, it's gonna look really nice. So once I break these apart, the roots actually smell like asparagus as well. So this right here is an asparagus crown. And all of these are these major roots. What we want to do is take the soil that we've added to our trench and we want to mound it so that way the roots are basically stretching over the mound like this. Now, this is the point where you're really gonna have to determine, is my trench wide enough? It probably would have been best for me to take the asparagus crowns out first, just to make sure my trench is good, but I think we have enough space, which works out really well for me. So now what I'm gonna do is work this trench into a mound, just like this. So that way the crown has something to sit on top of. Now we've got our hills on both of our trenches. So now we're just gonna lay out our asparagus. And we really wanna lay them out about 12, where'd my Hori knife go? Over here. We really wanna lay them out about 12 to 18 inches apart. And for my Hori, I've got a 6-inch measurement. My whole knife is 12 inches. So this is a really great tool. Another reason why I got my depth, got my length. So I'm gonna start off with my purple asparagus here. And I'm gonna actually start off with the Mary Washington. And we're gonna go down this way. I'm gonna come in just a little bit and we're gonna spread these roots out just like that. Notice I put them at an angle in order to maximize the area that I have. If I would have put them straight, I wouldn't have enough space in order to plant these crowns. So that's kind of a little hack that you can do to make sure that your spacing is good using the trench that you have. So now I'm just gonna go from center to center, 12 inches. And then we're just gonna slowly work our way like this. So I've got all my asparagus plants laid out. They're between 1 foot and 18 inches. I moved these ones a little bit wider just because I had some more space available, but I've got my trench over there as well. So everything's about 1 foot apart. So now before I do anything else, I'm going to label my plants. And I cannot emphasize this enough. I did enough research for my area that I'm confident that these plants are going to grow well. But if this is the first time that you're growing any plant, not necessarily even asparagus, any plant, make sure you label it in your garden because you can determine if it grows well or not for you. And you want to know that your very first year that you grow a variety. So that way you're not wasting your time trying to grow that variety later on sometime in your career, unless you have gotten significantly better at gardening and maybe want to give it another try. But I want to make sure that I have these labels for my reference. Now, before I cover my asparagus over, I'm going to be adding some Mykos, which is mycorrhizal fungi. It's a mixture of bacteria and fungi, and what this is going to do is inoculate the roots of my plants with this fungi and bacteria and help establish a better relationship with the plant's roots and the soil, because that's how the plant is going to absorb its nutrition and moisture and really establish. So this isn't a necessary step, but I have found really good results using Mykos. So what I'm gonna do, if you wanna come in here, when you sprinkle this on, it has to touch the roots of the plant. Again, you're developing a relationship between the roots and the soil, so this has to touch the roots for it to be effective. So I'm basically just gonna sprinkle it over the roots of all my plants here. Right, now I'm finally ready to start covering my plants, and I'm going to use my compost and native soil mixture again, and I'm just going to very lightly sprinkle this on over the crowns just to kind of lock them into place. And you want to do this with the mixture. So now that we have the crowns covered over with our native soil compost mixture, I'm going to use what I have left just to cover all of the crowns since I have this mixture made up. And then once you're done with your mixture, you're just going to go ahead and lay a solid layer of compost on top that will continuously break down and feed your asparagus, but will also act as a mulch as well. So what I'm doing with the compost is basically just filling out the rest of this trench to try to get my soil level even with about my mulch. You can see that I pulled all my mulch away. And what I'm going to do is put that back on top after I have all of my compost down. So this should be the last one here. But before we do that, we're gonna want to water these plants in really, really well. Get all that soil to sink down around those roots. Get that mycorrhizae to wake up, start inoculating those roots. And this is really what's gonna get things working. I'm not gonna go crazy with my water just because I'm gonna be getting some rain tonight, which is exactly why I'm planting my asparagus today. It's the perfect time to do it. So just enough of a drink in order to level things out. And if you see any mounds or hills like this, just take your rake and get that all leveled out. So I want to apply just enough mulch in order to provide some cover and to retain that moisture while these establish. And that's about it. So just very lightly teasing this mulch back in. I'm gonna grab a little bit from this side because this is definitely a lot lighter over here. And that's really all it takes in order to plant your asparagus. So even though it is a crop that requires a little bit more upfront effort, it doesn't really take that much. And what you're doing here is only gonna happen once in 15 years. So it really, really, really pays off to make these investments upfront, because you're gonna be able to grow hundreds of pounds of asparagus over its life. Now that we've got these planted, I want to go back over to our asparagus that we've already been growing for 3 years and talk about how to maintain and care for them over the years. This lovely asparagus that I grew. What's up, Russell? You're just getting all dirty back here. This guy loves the garden as much as we do, honestly. But as I said earlier in the video, these asparagus spears, I think this is our 4th year that we have these spears now, or either our 3rd or 4th year. And you really want to wait till at least the 2nd year. So basically the 1st year you're gonna eat no asparagus at all whatsoever, because you need them to grow into these ferns, which are gonna absorb all that sunlight and put the energy back down into its roots. What you were hoping for, what you're wanting, is that the asparagus comes back up again the following year. If it does, that's an excellent sign, because that means your roots are most likely established and they're gonna come back year after year after year. That 3rd year is when you can really start harvesting your asparagus. And a good rule of thumb is, because they are gonna start to spread, is that you could pick 1/3 of your asparagus spears. So basically, if you have 10 asparagus spears, or let's just say 9, if you have 9 asparagus spears, you'll be able to pick 3 of those spears and let the other 6 grow on. So we've got a pretty large grouping here. So let's pick one of these off here. Just break it. You see the water that just came off that? Look at that, how juicy, nutritious this is. This is the best food. You literally cannot get any fresher than that, and I love the taste of fresh asparagus. It's just so tender and sweet. It's slightly bitter, but it's just so good. It's so enjoyable. So as you can see, growing asparagus really isn't that difficult and requires a little bit of extra effort up front in order to get them established. But once they're established and growing, all you're gonna have to do is once a year, just come back either in the fall or the spring and add a nice layer of compost like I have here. That's really all you need to do. If you want to go a little bit above and beyond, you can get your soil tested and see what kind of nutrients and minerals that you need to add to your soil to really let your asparagus grow the absolute best that it can. But I've had excellent results just throwing on a layer of compost every single year. I really hope that you all enjoyed this video, and like this video if you did, and make sure you subscribe to our channel because we're always putting out amazing information on gardening and homesteading in order to be able to grow the gardener in you. Again, my name is Phil from Earth Nails and Tails, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.